The probability of closing a marketing generated lead is 28% higher for those companies that let their marketers change the stages in their CRM compared to those that come from the vendor. There's an additional 46% improvement for those companies when they make the change if they make it to buyer-centric instead of seller-centric stages. So the stage names that you use in your CRM are really, really important. But somehow only 24% of companies use buyer-centric language in their stage names. Why? Seriously, it's not about you, it's about your buyer. Because it's all about buyers, we talk about benefits and we feel like we've got the job done. Not yet. Benefits are great, but they come at the very end of the buying cycle. Buyers aren't interested in benefits if they're not interested in buying. And they're not interested in buying if there isn't a problem to fix. So let's go back to the end. In the end, if they want to enjoy a benefit, they've actually got to make a decision. And to make a decision, they've got to know what the options are and they've got to prefer one of them. Before that, they really know what the options are but don't really have a preference. And before that, at least they know what they need, even if they don't yet fully understand what the options are. And before that, there's some kind of problem going on in their business. Something's not where it needs to be. And that's why they need something at all, because there's a problem or a challenge or an impediment to fix. That's why they need something. And before that, they might be interested in your content or interested in meeting with your salespeople or interested in attending your event, but they're not yet troubled. And before that, they know who you are, but they're not interested. And before that, they don't even know who you are, and they're not interested, and they're not troubled. So really the buyer goes through a very distinct journey from who are you again to, well, I know who you are, but I'm really not interested, to, yeah, maybe I am interested, to, and actually the problem that you're talking about, it's real, it's happening for me, to, I know what I need, I'm now looking for options, and next stage would be I know what the options are, including yours, and after that I prefer yours, and after that I've made a decision. There's a distinct journey that a buyer takes, and the job for tactics is to help buyers move from one stage to the next with your concept in mind. Help them move, for sure, but help them move with your concept in mind. That's the job of tactics. But we don't start with the tactics, we start with the journey. But in the age of digital and self-directed buying, do buyers really let the sellers control them like that? Well, frankly, I'd say buyers never let sellers control them. But let's take a look. If a buyer's showing some indication of interest and then maybe even showing some interest, some indication that they're troubled, but then they don't act, then frankly they weren't troubled enough. They go off and they do other things. For sure they're going to come back, but they're not going to come back at the same point. You might have thought that they were troubled or even that they indicated a clear need. But when they come back into the funnel, you can't assume any of that. Really, all they've shown is interest, and then we need to help them move from interest to acknowledging the gap to understanding a clear need. The funnel leaks. Well, frankly, we knew that all along. The funnel leaks. Buyers move from one stage to the next, and then they fail to move. They exit the funnel. We'd better hope that our nurturing tactics represent a good proportion of the content that they're reading or consuming, because if it isn't, then when they come back into the funnel, they're coming back in with somebody else's concept in mind, not yours. Well, how do we set all of that up in your CRM? In a moment or two, I'm going to show you how we do this in Funnel Plan. But firstly, I'm going to answer the CRM question. Then I'm going to invite you to receive more blogs like this, and then I'll show you how we set this up in Funnel Plan. Let's get to the CRM question right now. CRMs are all configured to treat leads and opportunities differently. And perhaps when that norm was first established, it was distinctly marketing versus sales. I'm not so sure it's that clean anymore, but here's how I prefer to see that set up. In the lead stage, I want to see things like name. I want to see which of those names have done something to indicate that they understand who we are at least, which of those names understand or have evidence that they're in some way interested. Now, I'm probably going to put in the next stage, it will be marketing qualified lead. Now, good marketers really try to get their buyers troubled before they call the lead marketing qualified. But a good salesperson still wants to hear directly from the customer why they're troubled and in what way they're troubled. So I'm going to stop the lead process at MQL. So I'm going to go name, positioned, interested, and then marketing qualified lead. Then when we shift across to the opportunity side, we're going to start with marketing qualified lead, and we're probably going to inject sales qualified lead after that, because clearly there's going to be some kind of acceptance process, but also some of the leads, or excuse me, some of the opportunities are going to be created by sales. So we need, in the opportunity side, MQL, we also need SQL, and then we need the buyer stage again, gap acknowledged, because until the salesperson can actually eyeball the customer and the customer says, you're right, that's actually a problem and here's why, then if I'm a sales guy, I'm not going to accept that that buyer's troubled. So I'm going to put it after MQL, in fact, even after SQL. So we've got MQL, we've got SQL, then we've got gap acknowledged, and then the other stages I referred to before. Need agreed. That's not need articulated, it's need agreed. The buyer and the seller have the same concept of what's needed. That's the money shot. You really want to spend a lot of time with the prospects negotiating the concept of the need for which they seek a solution. Don't get your offer on the table and then start negotiating. It's way too late. Help them form the concept. So this gap to need transition is the most important transition in the whole journey. Then we get offer understood. That's not proposal submitted. Offer understood is a little further advanced than that. Certainly I've written the proposal, certainly I've submitted it, but the buyer and the seller have also had a little discussion and there is an understanding of what's on offer. Next stage, preference formed. Now I know preference happens all the way through the journey to some extent, but at some point the buyer actually says, I'm only interested in your solution, and we call that preference formed. Then there's a decision made. Why are they different? Because often there's contract negotiations at that point. So we've got preference formed, then we've got decision made, and then finally revenue. And the reason that we add revenue to the buyer's journey stage is that for many businesses, once the contract's signed, we actually don't get to count the revenue. And when we're building the velocity model, which I'll show you on another time, when we build that velocity model, we really need to work back from at what point do you call the sale? Is it from the signing of the contract, in which case decision made is enough? For a lot of businesses, it's when the invoice goes out the door, whether you're a service business or a product business. So we've added that additional stage, revenue. So that's it, that's the buyer's journey. And our job is to set up the CRM and your marketing automation platforms so that they use the language of the buyer with only a few insertions of the language of the seller where we need this kind of handover between sales and marketing. Well, if you enjoyed this blog, then hopefully you'd enjoy others that we produce. If you haven't already subscribed, then can I encourage you to do so right now. Go to mathmarketing.com/blog and subscribe. You'll see two options. You can either subscribe to the blog, which comes out twice a week, one video and one text blog, or you can subscribe to Funnel Vision Monthly, which is where we grab together all of the video blogs and we send it to you via email. A lot of people choose to do both, and you're very welcome to do that. If you have already subscribed and you've got a friend or colleague who you think hasn't, then send them along the link and encourage them to do so. I hope these blogs are of value. Now, Let me show you how we do this in Funnel Plan, I promised. Of all of the blogs that I've done recently where we finish them up like this with a quick explanation in Funnel Plan, this is the simplest for two reasons. Firstly, most businesses don't change the stages. There's logic in the way that we've framed the buyer's journey. We were the inventors of the term buyer's journey, and we think we understand it. Most businesses who use the Funnel Plan choose to not change the language that we've used. However, if you want to, it's as simple as this. Go to Buyer's Journey, and what you can do is you can simply edit the names of the stages. You'll see that on the right-hand side of your screen, we've left the standard stages there, and on the left-hand side you've got some editable boxes. Couple of requests. Firstly, the stage called Decision Made is a really critical stage. Make that your signing stage. Separately, think really carefully about this gap to need transition that I explained before. Try to hang on to that concept. Final request, it's all about the buyer. Make your stages the buyer's journey, not the seller's. I'm going to do this a little bit backwards because I kind of forgot to show you where it sits in the Funnel Plan first. The buyer's journey sits in two spots in the Funnel Plan. Firstly, it sits here. Let's zoom in, take a little look at it around the velocity model, because the velocity model is how many buyers need to move through each stage over every month, every quarter, every year of the plan. But the buyer's journey also manifests itself down here in the tactics. Let's take a look at those. The tactics that you use are all around moving the buyers from one stage to the next. So when we articulate the tactics, it needs to be informed by the buyer's journey stages. So whatever names you use in the buyer's journey, they're going to appear in the velocity model that I showed you first and in this tactics section here. Now, how many buyers need to move through each stage and what tactics we use to get them to do that, I'm going to show you on another day. For now, may your funnel be full and always flowing.